Siobhan.
Katie, can I just say something?
Mhm.
So Cheryl is here. Her microphone isn't working, so she just wanted to let you know. So she hit that up in the chat box.
Okay, if you could manage that for me, if she has any questions, just keep us up to date for her.
Yeah, perfect.
All right,
Okay,
thanks, Jay. Hi, Siobhan. All right, so we're gonna start. Welcome, everybody. Anybody else? I don't have a waiting room, so anybody can join anytime. This is the bidders conference for the youth RFP for WIOA in and out of school youth. Just a quick overview of anybody who's reapplying this year, who got funding last year. The RFP has been combined into one RFP this year. So there's two different narratives, but it's all in the same RFP. I just made it easier. And I would like everybody to know that programs are allowed to apply for both an in-school and an out-of-school, you know, if it's viable, but they would still have to be two separate proposals. Okay. So, quick overview of the agenda. I'm going to briefly talk about the board, briefly talk about WIOA, and then I'm going to go through the RFP process, how much funding we have, what the board does, who's eligible to apply, what youth are eligible to partake, what we expect of the programming, what the performance measures are, a little bit about the budget, and then we'll be open for questions. Okay, so for any of you who are on this webinar that don't know what WIOA is, it stands for Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, came out in 2014. There's 16 workforce areas who get the WIOA funding. Our area is a little different than other areas. We put all of our WIOA youth money out into the field, except for staffing to pay for Kathy and I to work with you guys. The rest of the money goes out to youth programs. We do not deliver any youth services in-house. The only other money we keep at the board for youth services is to pay for training, for occupational skills training after somebody finishes one of your programs. So again, we're going to pick in and out of school youth, and 75% of our funding needs to go to out of school youth. The best way I could put it, if there's $100,000, $75,000 has to go to out of school youth. Just so you also know, they have to be from the Greater Lowell area. As you can see, we've listed them in green, what the cities are: Billerica, Chelmsford, Dracut, Dunstable, Lowell, Tewksbury, Tingsboro, and Westford. Right now, almost all of our current programs who are funded are located in Lowell or Greater Lowell, Tex, Tingsboro, right? My geography is terrible. Other than that, the other programs are all located in Lowell. Again, I want to reinforce, you have to submit two separate proposals if you are applying to both. Yeah, the funding will come in starting in July, as every other year, and June 30th. And right now, I need to base the total funding on this previous year, where we estimated 60,000 for the in-school programs and 275 for out of school. Both could go up or down. If I had to guess, I would say up more than down, but it is at my discretion. For me, we're probably going to look to save a little more money to send more people to occupational skills training after they get their high set or after they graduate high school, because there's such a need for the trades and for occupational skills. Just take a quick minute to look at this page. It's important. Make sure the agency you work for that is applying for the funding is in fact one of these, which, looking at the grouping here, everybody in this meeting falls into one of these categories. So right here, I want to talk about what the board does. So for everybody who kind of already knows what we do, this is Kathy's job. Kathy is the person who you connect with, who you talk to all the time. She does all the intake with you after you meet the students, the eligibility, the assessments, the tape testing. She'll execute your contract. She'll work back through me to get the funding approved. Any questions you have, you're going to call Kathy. And then she will also be the one you give your monthly reporting to. I'm not going to go over this too much because I'm going to send you the PowerPoint, but what's very important for this, they have to be legal to work in the United States. They have to register for selective service. Jason, I'm going to direct this a little bit directly more to you, is the selective service website gives a bunch of information for people who are not originally from the United States, and workarounds and exceptions to the rules for people who did not in fact register before they were 26. And we do need proof for out-of-school youth that they are not attending school, and the age limit is 24. The rest, you can read through when you're doing your proposal. Make sure that if you're gonna apply for funding, that you know there is a cohort of students you can recruit for your program.
And is this the same as last year or no?
Yep, nothing's changed eligibility wise since last year, except that the low income rates, which I'll go over in a future slide, will have changed because they change every year, like the amount somebody could earn if they're working. That answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
So sorry, I'll go back to that one. So basically, a low income individual, I want to revisit that one, number 9. So a lot of times when you're looking to enroll somebody into your program, they need a barrier. And if they don't necessarily test too low, or they're not homeless, or they're not in foster care, or they don't hit one of the bulleted barriers, we have this sort of what we call the catch-all. It's, you know, they need your program, you know, they're low income, but they don't necessarily have documentation to prove they're one of the other barriers. You can use one of these two, A or B: little or no successful work experience, or long unsuccessful work search, or let's say they applied, went to Middlesex or went to any community college, found it wasn't working for them, and they dropped out. As long as you have proof they attended at some time and are no longer attending, we can use that bullet as well. These are both a little harder to prove, but we don't want to rule somebody out who we know needs the services. So that's what those 2 bullets are for. Now, this is more for the in-school. So I think Cheryl will probably have to try to jump back on, but in-school youth eligibility, the difference is they have to be attending high school. They can't have graduated. They have to be going to school. Same barriers, but all in-school youth have to prove income. Unless they get free lunch. And again, I need to be clear on the free lunch issue for everybody. If your school gets it, that doesn't mean you're low income. We need to get separate proof that you in fact qualified for free lunch due to being low income. Again, I won't go too in depth unless anybody has any questions here, because we can accept questions for another 2 weeks, and Kathy can assist with any eligibility questions anybody has. Source documentation. Everybody here pretty much knows, but we have to document anything that we say is true. If we say a student is basic skills deficient, we need to test or something from the school. If we say that they are homeless, we need proof either from the shelter they're living in, the temporary housing they're living in, or an applicant statement, perhaps from the person's house where they might be couch surfing. Kathy keeps a hard copy of all of these files. That being said, we strongly suggest programs keep their own files on the students. Those files will not be monitored, only the ones that Kathy holds. And again, this link right here at the bottom will take you directly to the eligibility policy, but we can also email them out if anybody needs them. Jason, this is what I was talking about. As of right now, this was released at the end of 2021. I can't say that won't change during the year, but if it does, I send the updates and we update your folders to match what this is. So it could change, and I feel like it probably will. Just real quick, again here, you don't need to prove any income if you fall under any of these categories for an in-school youth. And I want to reiterate again, a designated low-income school does not mean that student is low income. Kathy and the in-school programs can coordinate on that. They know how to do that. And for all of you who don't know what the bottom part is for live in a high poverty area, we can walk you through that. That's when you can't get a pay stub. You can't prove they get SNAP or transitional assistance. You have no way of proving income. We can run a search for you to see if they live in a high poverty area. We can print out that information, and that's all you need. And I think not a lot of people use it, but it's quite useful, honestly, because also when you want to go back to DTA, if they're looking for benefits, they can go back and say that they live in the high poverty area. There are 14 elements that each program is required to either offer or refer their enrollees to. Our board alone, not every other area, requires 6 of those have to be delivered. And then 4 more of your choosing need to be delivered. And then the other ones just need referrals. But I do want to go over this again because it's pretty important. Right here, I'm going to stop on this slide a little bit, slow down a little bit. So number 1, every program is leading toward some sort of certification. So clearly number 1 is very important. 2, work experience. I'd like to reiterate here again. Work experience with COVID restrictions lifted need to be employer related. An employer needs to be involved, or a work site placement needs to be involved. So we are pretty open in our area on a work experience, but it needs to be employer involvement or work placement involved. So if somebody brings out an employer to talk to the students, that is a work experience. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to pay the students for that work experience, but you may charge staff time. So again, an employer needs to be involved, or a work site placement needs to be involved. Follow-up services, everybody. I can't stress enough how important follow-up services are to the performance of your programs. You might have students who leave your program and 4 months later reappear. You have 1 year to find out if they got a job, and we could still get credit. And after 6 months, it could still be a positive outcome for your program. So I know a lot of times people say, well, the youth exited, they don't want us bothering them. Do what you can to instill in them when you enroll them, that you will be following them for at least 1 year after exit. Financial literacy. You can use an outside agency. You could use trained internal staff. They're trying to put it in the schools. We have staff at the Career Center. CTI has financial literacy training. This is a must. We find it extremely important. And the thing about financial literacy is you need to show Kathy that they completed it by showing her something, either the day of the class, who instructed it, that they did it. All of these 6 need to be documented back through Kathy that they happened. Labor market. We just met with the state. They're really pushing labor market because they want our programs gearing students toward industries that have increased job openings, increased salaries, long-term projections of it being, a competitive salary, competitive positions they could go into. So every student should be spending time on labor market research with the program, so they could say, all of a sudden, if hairdressing says there's no openings in the Lowell area, is that something you should be gearing your student toward? And then transition to post-secondary education. Everybody should be talking to them about either skills or post-secondary education. I'm not saying everybody needs to go. It's not for everybody, but it should be a discussion in your program. And then on the next slide, again, we won't go over all of them. The 6 you have, there's a total of 14. There's 6 mandatory, which means you have 8 others to choose from that in your proposal, you're going to write how you're going to deliver the 6, what other 4 you're going to deliver, and how they'll be delivered. And then say, for instance, a student came in and you didn't pick entrepreneurial programming as one of your elements, find some place that does it and you could refer them. We have a bunch of places around here that do entrepreneurial training. Right there, it's the 3rd section down. Not everybody offers it in their programming, and I understand it, but there's a lot of places that do. Again, I'm going to go over work experience again. Please read this list real quickly. I would like also to stress that the Career Center, the Young Adult Center, has a summer jobs program. We get a lot of funding for a summer jobs program. Please connect with them if you have youth 24 and under who are looking for summer job experience, but your program is struggling to place them. Please connect with the Young Adult Career Center for that. So as you can see in this list, this is all interacting with an employer. Or again, the top bullet, paid and unpaid internships. So we have some programs that do work experience throughout the whole program and have the students out in the field. That also counts. This slide is mostly for the people writing the grants. Also, this is what in your budget you could charge for staff time, for work experience, and what you can do for youth wages. I want to be clear. No youth can work on WIOA money for over 100 hours. We could pay them up to 100 hours. You can continue to do work experience with them, but we can only pay them up to 100 hours at the state minimum wage. Once they hit 100, you'd have to use other funding to pay them. But if you look under staff time, every single one of these can be charged off for staff time. But Kathy also has the right to say, we did in fact get your invoice. I see you charged all this staff time for work experience, but I didn't see any students actually partaking in a work experience. So I'm a little confused, and you could just explain it to her, how you have a staff charge without a student on a work experience. So at the end of all this, you guys could ask me any questions about that. It always seems to be the top question. It just does. All right, performance indicators. You're measured on enrollments and outcomes. The state who come and monitor you are only looking at the outcomes. We, the board, are looking at enrollments and outcomes. We do not make the outcome rates up. That comes directly from the WIOA funders. So right here, if you could see, employment and education, within the first 6 months after the student leaves your program, they want 81% of those who left your program to be in a job, college, training, or the military. So you have from the day they left 6 months out to place them in something. And even if you find out 9 months later, but they started within that 6 months, that's why I go back to my follow-up, so important. That is a positive outcome for you. So a lot of times, one of our programs might say to Kathy, I'm having a lot of stress. We have all these negative outcomes. I'm one of those people that they're never negative till the last moment in that year when you're trying to track them down. Same thing, a year after they leave your program, they're looking at 74% of them still being engaged in some sort of education, training, or a job, or the military. You could see median wages is 6 months again. They're going to look what their median monthly wages were at the 6 month mark. Credential attainment is industry recognized credential within a year after exit. High set, high school diploma, GED. Some programs do an occupational skills. I can't go over all of them, but you'll write it in your proposal that our program is going to be able to offer students this type. We would tell you if it wasn't an acceptable credential if you proposed it. And then measurable skills gain. This is while they're in your program. This means, did they gain something while in the program? If somebody took a CPR class, that's a skills attainment during your program. So you want to overshare with Kathy rather than undershare, because I always feel like your programs do such great work, but if you don't tell Kathy, it doesn't get in the system and nobody knows the great work you're doing. I'd rather overshare than undershare. And the employment retention measure, the reason I always put TBD, basically what they're trying to see there is how many of your graduates who got a job have remained at the same employer. But they don't have a goal for it, but we do watch that. Like, did they job hop, or are they a year later at that same company? All right, I'm going to turn this over to Kathy real quick. The ISS is basically a career plan for each student. Go ahead, Kath.
So the ISS, it's a working document that I will fill out their name and their basic things, like if they're in and out of school, if they're going for their high set or whatever. And then I will send it to you, and you do the Mass CIS career assessment with your student, and it's a working document that goes back and forth. If they gain a credential, you can add that on there, put it back, and I can put it in Moses. So basically at the end, when they're completed the program, they'll sign off, you'll sign off, and then a copy of it will go in their file. So it is something that goes back and forth. You have to identify a career pathway. You have to meet with the student when you're sitting with the student to complete it.
All right, Cass, if you just
Um,
want to go over a couple of the types of assessments they can do, that you do the tape and talk a little bit about Mass CIS.
Okay, so all the out-of-school students are TABE tested to see what level they're at. And and we do a career assessment with all the youth. I
No,
don't
it's fine.
know.
I'll jump in right there. So we are strongly suggesting that at a minimum, they do one assessment, if not two, again, to lead them to a career pathway. We use Mass CIS here because it's user-friendly. It's easy for the kids to navigate. You can use whatever assessment you want to show that you did a skills assessment and a career assessment, but you need to let Kathy know it was done, same thing, so we can document it in our database that the student in fact completed that portion of it. Kathy offers the TABE testing here. If you have a certified TABE tester at your location, you may do the TABE testing yourself, but we need the scores from you in the way we need them. It has to be version 11 and 12, and we need the new scoring system. It's more, Kathy, I forget what it's called. What's the scoring called now? Doesn't it give you a different grade now? It's not grade level or.
Yeah, it's the scale score in NRS
NRS
levels.
score. So we would need those scores if you are and if a monitor came out and asked us for copies of the test, if you said you did your own testing, we have to be able to request a copy of it as needed. I think you're safer giving Kathy a copy, but you do not have to, but we have to be able to get a copy of it if they ask.
We only have one out of school right now that does, and I always get copies of all their tests when the kids apply.
Kath, just briefly go over what we mean about a career pathway.
It means a combination of education and training. You know, it aligns with the skills needs of industries, prepares individuals to be successful in education options, organizes education, training, and other services, enables the attainment of secondary and at least one post-secondary credential, and supports entrance or advancement within a specific occupation or occupational cluster.
So for those of you don't know, I just finished up the monitoring with the state after about 6 weeks. And one of their overall comments, not in a negative way, was we really want to see more career pathways and youth programs across the state. Somebody enrolls in your program and you do all the great things you do, but did they leave there with an idea of their career path, where they want to go with it? Did they leave there with a high set, and even if they just left with a job to support themselves while they do, are they leaving saying, I want to go into healthcare? What did they explore in your program while they were enrolled that led them to say, hey, I do want to go in to IT. I did these things in this program that led me to believe this is what I want to do now, which brings me to the next slide of this is the workforce board where I work, top priority industries. They also are the top hiring industries right now. It doesn't mean they need to leave your program and say, I now have a job at advanced manufacturing, but we would like these 5 industries at least introduced to your students during their enrollment period, because they are all looking for people right now. What we didn't include, obviously, was retail and food, because across the board, they're all understaffed. We know that. We got to look at them as great if you get them a job even during your program, but do they have an idea where they want to go to find a self-sustaining career when they leave your program? The budget. I believe I said April 14th is the last day for questions that need to be submitted to the email that's in the RFP and on our website. There's 3 sections, but it's all in one budget. We updated the instructions this year. We've made it easier. Again, work experience has to be 20% of the overall budget. There's no wiggle room there. We are one of the regions, proud to say, that makes that every year. Our vendors work closely with Kathy and our invoicing team to make sure that's happening. We're happy to give any suggestions on how to make that happen. But if you have any questions on this, please email us anytime and we can help you with the budget stuff up until, am I right? Yeah, it is the 14th of April. So there is going to be a program narrative, a work experience narrative, and then on 2 separate Word documents, and then the Excel spreadsheets, one big sheet with all 3 different tabs. They're all self-calculating. It's really plug in the numbers and it's going to calculate everything for you. Again, I said it twice, I'll say it a 3rd time. 1 program proposal, 1 price proposal for each in school and out of school, if for some reason any programs are looking for both. And I'm going to stop here for a quick minute. April 14th, and I am posting all of your questions on our website. No question is a bad question. I just hope I can give good answers to them. They're due Thursday, the 21st. Everything's going to Kathy. If you mail it and you do not drop it off, that is completely fine, but it has to be, we will stamp it and we will give you a receipt that we received it and time. And that's all with Kathy. Contract start dates, as always, is July 1st. As a workforce board, we have to submit who was chosen to our full board and they'll vote on it. We will have at least 3 people reading these proposals and scoring them. That will happen during the first couple of weeks in May. That's the timeline I have right now. So the readers will all be people who have no conflict of interest with anybody who's applying, which you wouldn't think that's as difficult as it has been, but you have to find 3 people who have no connection to any of the proposals that we receive. And in Lowell, I have found is not as easy as I thought, because everybody seems to know everybody or work with everybody and everybody has great partnerships. So it's been more difficult for me to find somebody who has an interest in the applicants. So again, that's a review process. This is really broken down well in the RFP. I did not change the point scoring system. I went over it again this year. I think it works well because to me, the program design is the most important piece because it's going to include all the things we just talked about today. Again, I'm going to really push work experience, career pathways, and what happens when they leave is what we're looking for, because right now there are more jobs than job seekers. So we're really trying to even help with that situation right there. And anytime you think somebody's leaving your program may need other training, the Career Center, the Young Adult Career Center, the big Career Center here have a lot of dollars for training right now. So, but most of them require a high set or a high school diploma. If they leave your program, please contact us so we could also tell you about the other trainings we have available. And now that COVID's lifted, every program must visit a Career Center, whether it be the young adult, the main one. I prefer both because we have a lot of older youth going to our programs and they really, really should learn all of the things that the Career Center has to offer. Their webinars are phenomenal. Take advantage because a lot of those elements you see can be fulfilled by doing one of our live webinars at the Career Center. And Bob, our instructor, is great. I'm going to send this out. These are all the links to eligibility, all the WIOA rules, forms. Kathy will share forms with you, but this will include forms when I send this out. These are all live links. You can use them to find anything you want to know about WIOA. It's some really good reading. And then I know I talk a lot and fast, so I'm going to stop. Does anybody have any questions?
I think there is a couple in the chat.
Huh?
I think there's a couple of questions in the chat.
All right.
Yeah, so Katie.
Yep.
It's Heather. For the record.
Since you didn't know her.
Go ahead.
The funding, so the funding level that you posted is the same as last year. That's what you're going basing off this year.
Yes.
And then do you know the anticipated like award date announcements, and not when the contract starts, but like, do you anticipate when you're going to be telling people if they have gotten it or not?
Right. So let me tell you guys how that will work. So my hope is that our readers and scorers finish before Memorial Day. So at that point, I will have the scores and the people will have been chosen. So between that date and then the board meeting on June 16th, I will go work with the fiscal agent to say, this is who was scored, this is who was chosen. The full board's going to vote on it, but we could at least start the preliminary conversations between end of May and the board meeting on June 16th. So that's the best answer I could give you right now, hoping nothing changes and the readers complete as I need them to. But my goal is, I have to lean over for a calendar real quick. Memorial Day's late this year, so our goal is May 17th to have the scoring completed. That's on our calendar right now, so that's the best estimate I can give you. And let me go back to the other thing you asked is, I think, again, looking at the allocations of the way of the world, it could go up. But I will meet with my fiscal person to decide if we should keep a bigger lump sum for training dollars, because they may need it. People may need it, and there's a lot of good trainings out there. Did that answer your questions?
Perfectly, thank you.
Thank you. Siobhan, Jason, anything? Feel good? I covered it all?
Yeah, pretty much all the same, you know, I'm ready to apply. I enjoy the grant, I enjoy you guys working with you, so, to another year.
Thanks, Siobhan. I will get this all out to Cheryl because I know she had technical difficulties, so I feel her pain. We've struggled with that a couple of times recently. So if there's anything else you need, the email address is the one in the RFP. That's info at, because of procurement reasons, everything else, that is the only email I need you to send the questions on. If that makes sense, because as of this bidders conference, that is the email for any and all questions, even if you already have a relationship with us right now as your partner for your current training. For procurement reasons, only the email. Is it Kathy? Is it info@glwdb.org?
Yes, I think so. Yep.
Kathy and I will be screening both of them. She'll be doing them all. I'll help her if she needs help with any of the answers. All right. All right, everybody. Again, any questions, please email us.
Thank you very much, guys.
All right. I'll see y'all
Thanks,
later.
Katie.
Bye.